How's it going, everyone? So, just posted my first episode, or at least the trailer for the episode, just to kind of like a little audio test. Liked what I was hearing, so I'm gonna stick to the setup for now. But anyway, for my first episode, kind of really wasn't looking to do this. I was thinking about what I wanted to go ahead and discuss on my drive, but the other day, me and the wife went out to the Trail of Lights in Austin, and it brought up some old feelings that I really would just like to get off my chest, just because don't get a chance to discuss this a lot. But I want to go ahead and talk about gentrification, especially down here in Austin. This ain't really going to be like a political rant or, man yells at cloud about it, everything, but it's just something that it's a process. It's a process that goes on through a lot of growing cities, growing towns, and you don't really care about it too much until like it happens to your town, and then suddenly you're just like, what the fuck? Because you suddenly see what it can do. And while a good amount of it is good, there's always going to be that balance of bad on the side. And with Austin, that's happened real fast over the past few years to the point where it's like, I don't even want to go downtown. I don't really want to go to Austin anymore just because I know it's no longer the same. And even driving by the downtown area and seeing the skyline now, it's like I don't like it. It's not the Austin that everybody knew. It's not the Austin that a lot of people fell in love with. And it's definitely not the Austin that made Texas essentially Texas. And it's something that I really like to discuss, but everyone has their own experiences in Austin. Everyone has their own takes about how it was or how it is. Everyone has their own opinions about it. Everyone has their own visions and viewpoints of how it is. And most of them just are there visiting or for events and has memories tied to it. I'm kind of the same way. I never lived in downtown. I lived up in North Austin when I was living in the Austin area. But I would constantly still go make the trips to downtown, even if I was just going to have like dinner at a bar, uh, just by myself, just to kind of get out and have, just be out of the apartment, maybe meet some people, chat it up with a friend. It was just some place that was just like I found my comfort zone there. And then now being there, while a lot has changed, a lot has stayed the same, it still has kind of lost its appeal to me. That even when I took my kids down to downtown a few times recently, it's like the vibe, everything about it is not the same. And even though they've only been to downtown like a handful of times, even they know like this is just not Austin. This is not what we remember. This is not the feel of what we remember, what we kind of got used to. Not necessarily liked because, like I said, they've only been down there a handful of times, and it wasn't for like a long time on either trip. But it's still something that is ingrained in them. Like, hey, this is what we saw, what we experienced. And while you could hype up Austin back in those days, and it could live up to the hype because again, everyone's going to get their own experience out of it. Everyone takes away something that's just for them. Now it's just, and I know I keep repeating myself over and over again about how like it's just not there. So essentially, when I was living in Austin, I remember everyone always talking about Sixth Street, even when like the town I grew up in, which is about an hour north of Austin. Everyone would always talk about Sixth Street, and Sixth Street was the place to be, and it was like the biggest party area. When Real World Austin was shooting in Austin, they kind of stayed close to Sixth Street, and every episode they were always at Sixth Street, at the Dizzy Rooster in Sixth Street, and it was just like okay. Like Austin's the place to be. Austin is where everything happens. Like there's San Antonio, there's Dallas. Austin competes with that, even though Austin is very small, because everyone just goes to the downtown area. Like it's still someplace I would like to go. And then several years later, when I ended up going down to Austin, it's like, okay, yeah, did the club scene, did the bar hopping scene, and I found a few bars that were like, okay, they're kind of cool to block the streets off on 6th Street so that way people can walk in the street and not have to worry about drivers or any dumbass drunks leaving the area in a very crowded night. Like I dig it. It's made to they know what it is, they know what's there, they're keeping everyone safe and at least try to get everyone taken care of. And then when I came back from Iraq and I was living down there, and I found a restaurant with a really good friend of mine, and we just fell in love with that restaurant. Like the decor, the atmosphere, everything about that restaurant was just bar. Actually, it was just a bar slash restaurant too, but everything about it was just like this is for us. Like this is where we feel most comfortable. And we went during the day. We didn't go during a club night. We didn't go on a weekend. We went during the week in the daytime. And we're like, granted, it's slow, and we're probably like the 2 out of 5 people that are in the bar. Like it's still really chill and awesome. And got to talking to the bartender at the time. He was a super cool dude. He's probably the main reason I kept going back to that bar. Uh, but me and him hit it off real quick, and he invited us out to a company party, a tequila release party that was being held at that bar, which is invite only. And he was working. He said he'd be working that night. He said just drop his name right at the door. We'll be able to get in and enjoy ourselves, get some free tequila off of it, which we did. I don't think the tequila company is around anymore, but for what they were, or when they were around, they were actually a pretty good tequila. A little bit on like the somewhat affordable side, and I think closer to the end there, they kind of jumped their prices up because they knew they were good. Nonetheless, they were still worth the money. But that was called Cruise Tequila for anyone who's curious. And if they're able to find a bottle, it has a Texas and a giant cross on it, in a clear bottle. At the time, it was like $18 ish a bottle, which is for tequila that tastes really good. It's actually really good price for that tequila. And I think it went up to almost like 30 something dollars a bottle near the end, is before I couldn't find it anymore. So anyway, that was like our place to just like. Granted, I would go there by myself because they had this amazing burger, this goat burger called the Chupacabra burger, because the restaurant was called Chupacabra Bar and Grill, and it was like a $10 burger at the time for like $12. Essentially, you could get that, which was like a half pound of goat meat, 3 slices of bacon, 3 types of cheese, spicy mayo, and French fries for like $12, and I can get a beer on that, probably make it like 14. But it was like that was actually at the time when I started going there, it was like maybe $12 with the beer. But it was just like that's actually pretty awesome. Like the food was amazing, the bartender was amazing, the atmosphere was amazing. Like not even just that one bartender was actually really really cool. The other bartenders that worked there regularly were fantastic as well. But like whenever I wanted to go out and go drink, if I wanted to go to Sixth Street or if I just wanted to chill, like sometimes I wouldn't even drink. I'd just go and grab a burger, grab some flautas, grab some stuffed jalapenos, whatever like on the menu that just sounded amazing, and to just have some company. I was living by myself at the time. I did have some friends that went to school at the place that I was going to, and I granted I lived near campus. A lot of them did, but a lot of them like to kind of do their own thing, which is fine. My roommates, I'd take them out every now and then. We go to Chupacabras and just chat, have a good time. And then another place I ended up going to was Texas Chili Parlor, which is right near UT campus. That hasn't changed. That part of Austin really hasn't changed all that much, so I'll give it that. But there are some stuff there that has changed too, which I will get to in a little bit once I get past the heart of it all, which is the downtown area. But we ended up having a friend come over one day to visit me while I was there in Austin, and we ended up discovering the Alamo Draft House right there on 6th Street, like literally maybe a quarter of a block away from Chupacabras. I'd always heard about it, was always curious, but never decided to go just because I'm like, the price for the tickets is kind of stupid. And it's in the middle of downtown, there's two theaters, whatever. But he wanted to go check out a movie. I was like, it's right there, let's go. Movie tickets weren't that bad just because it was just a regular movie on a regular day. And fell in love with the Draft House too. That is the thing that really set me off, is just being like, as a movie lover, I'm like, this is my theater. This is where I'm going to just watch almost every single movie now that I can, if I get the chance to. They do implement strongly their no talking policy, which I love. I can't stand. I mean, if you want to have like conversation amongst yourself and you're not being loud, you're not really disturbing the people around you, that's fine. Uh, Usually though, like on big movies, there's always that one person that's always just like talking, yelling at the screen. And especially if it's like not even a movie where that's called for, then it's like just really ruins the environment for me. That, and then people always being on their phones and having their brain just turned way the fuck up for no reason. Why do you need that big of a flashlight to just check a text or take a fucking phone call in the middle of the theater and not like get out, and you're just gonna sit there and watch when you're actually talking to someone and not even mentioning, hey, I'm at the theater right now. Let me call you back. Or, hey, like, yeah, let's just catch up real quick. Hey, by the way, I'll call you back once the movie's done. No, not even that shit. But the Draft House enforces all that. They've actually kicked people out. And you get like a warning. After that warning, you get booted the fuck out. And I love that. They don't want anyone's experience to be ruined. And for certain things that they do, movies that they show, it's like you have to have that experience. You can't have that ruined. They don't want a ruined experience to be associated to the movie that you just watched. Granted, a lot of people will be like, I kind of like the movie. I would have enjoyed it better if this a-hole wasn't there. Hey, the a-hole's gone. The a-hole only took up 5 minutes of that film. You can enjoy the rest. But that was my go-to in the downtown area. If I wasn't going to Chupacabras, I was going to the Draft House, because the Draft House had everything as me as a movie lover and a horror fan just had. They had Terror Tuesdays where you could actually go on Tuesdays at 10 o'clock or 10:30, and they would show horror movies on like the original reels, like a 35 millimeter reel, because it was one of the few theaters that still had old style projectors as well as new style projectors. But it would be $1. You could pay $1 to go see a horror movie from like the 80s. And it's not like a cheap, slocky horror movie either. Like pretty big name horror movies that you could see for $1 on a Tuesday at 10:30 at night. Get out at midnight and be like, yeah, that was pretty cool. Love that. You can get a beer at the Draft House. You can get a burger. You can get big ass tub of popcorn that's bottomless sodas. It's like you're at your house watching a movie, but you're getting the theater experience. And they bring the food and drinks to you. You don't got to be like other theaters. You just got to be like, okay, I got to find a lull in the movie or a down point in the movie. Get up and go to concessions and get my popcorn refilled or get my drink refilled. Grab my wife or kids some nachos while I'm there. They write down on a card, put it there. A server comes by, picks it up, and within a few minutes later, like they bring it to you, so you don't miss anything in the movie. And they don't like casually like a regular restaurant server just walk by. Like no, these people are really good at like duck walking because they will crouch down and they will make sure they're not in the way between you and the screen. Anyway, that is like small little departures. Love of the draft house there. But then there's other stuff too that was just like it's fun to just explore that part of Austin. They started to discover other restaurants, other bars, other stores. Like Wild About Music became one of my favorite places to go and check out, just for the music, the beauty of all the instruments and the love of music that they had. And just because I grew up with my mom playing a lot of music for me in the house, so it's like the fact I can go to a place and they have instruments, they have artwork dedicated to musicians and music. Like it was literally a music lover's store, and it used to have a pretty big storefront. And I loved it. I took my mom there, and she loved the hell out of it too. I got a mug, one of my favorite mugs. That is my mug from that store, and it's a design they don't make anymore, which I'm kind of glad I got. But it also sucks that should hopefully not. But should something happen to that mug, I'm kind of SOL on that. The store is still there, and I will get to that later as to what happened to all these places that happened through gentrification. But the skyline was like very small. Austin was like one of the only towns or yeah, essentially cities that in Texas where it's like we're the capital, but we don't have much of a skyline. Like Dallas has the ridiculous skyline. Houston has a ridiculous skyline. And by ridiculous, I don't mean Jesus Christ, look at that ugly thing. No, it's just it looks like a city skyline. It's very beautiful and gorgeous to the eye. And these are bigger towns than Austin, which is the capital, and Austin doesn't have much of a skyline at that time. And so there was just a lot of it was on the ground level, not necessarily trying to catch your eye. It was a place that kind of invoked you to get lost in. Discovered Frank's, which has been closed before gentrification happened. Going down Congress, actually being on Congress, just in general. Just because you can go onto Congress, look to your right, and you will see the Capitol building clear as day. Because even though you're like 8 blocks away from it, it's right there. That's why they call it Congress. The road literally leads to the center of the building. But you go left across the Congress Street Bridge, which is also pretty awesome. If anyone hasn't checked it out or it plans on visiting, we'll give you a little tip about that later. But if you go to South Congress, there's other restaurants, there's other bars, there's other like amazing staples that made Austin known for what it was known for, which is the whole Keep Austin Weird thing. Literally, there was a whole diverse, uh, there were whole diverse areas dedicated to just about everyone in Austin. Sixth Street was like the main hub for bars, but it was different bars, different types of bars for different types of people on Sixth Street. So everyone had their own bar. But if you just wanted more of a certain atmosphere and not just a catch-all atmosphere like it was on Sixth, like Fifth Street had essentially the LGBT district. And like there was at least about a block or two of bars that were just gay bars. And they were actually like pretty cool bars, not gonna lie. There's also like a few fancy bars out there. Like there's an absinthe bar that I took a buddy of mine to for his birthday. He regrets that to this day. I still say it's a fun story. But like you had those kinds of bars. And like the more up class restaurant and bars were closer to like Second, Third Street, just because you're closer to the W, which is this giant hotel that also had a restaurant and a bar right at the base of the hotel. Again, not something that you would find just by going into the building and just maybe it's like the ground floor and like in a corner area of the like no, it was just a restaurant attached to a hotel, restaurant and bar attached to the hotel. But then they also had food truck areas. They had like walk up pizza places. I miss Hoyt's. Hoyt's Death Metal Pizza. Doesn't matter how much you had to drink or didn't have to drink. That shit hit the spot. It got a little pricey near the end before they closed, but Jesus Christ, for at least like at the time, I think it was like 250 or $3 a slice. The slices were huge. The ingredients, the taste, everything about it was like, wow. And they only opened during the weekends for the drunk crowd, which I also respect them for because it made it even more special when I would walk by in their area on 6th Street and see that they were open because I'm like, holy shit, I need to get some Hoyts. Otherwise, I was just like, man, I just see the storefront and they see that code. It's like, oh yeah, there's Hoyts, and then that's it. I would just keep on going. But when that hit, that smell of pizza hit, and you're just like, Hoyts is open. I need Hoyts. So I know I'm going in like so many different directions with like this conversation and where it's supposed to be going. I know the structure on this part of it is very, very off, but there was all of those. Even Lucy in Disguise, which has been the most recent casualty of gentrification, was a staple in Austin. Everyone knew of Lucy in Disguise, and they might not have had so good a business. They might have had great business. And I never really talked to many of the employees there to kind of gauge how everything was. But you definitely could walk in and be like, this is Austin. Big Top Candy Shop, thankfully, is still there. Home Slice, which is still doing amazing, and they're still there. But all of these places, like I said, would keep Austin, Austin. Whenever I had friends fly in from out of state, or if I decided I'm going to take some friends from my hometown or from any other town, be like, hey, let's meet up in Austin. I'd walk them around. Like, these are the places to kind of go. What do you like? There's a place here for you. And they would just love that. And they would always bring it up. Like, hey, like, next time we go, let's go back to this place. And man, I'm really missing this place. I wish we could just go back. I'm like, you don't have to wait for me. If you need to go on your own, you can go on your own. I ain't gonna feel offended. But that was the beauty. And then the last thing that was the greatest was Rainy Street. So Rainy Street was it's a neighborhood in downtown, right off of First Street. If you didn't know any better, it just looked like a neighborhood. I mean, they knew they were near the club area, so you would have like some of the houses would be like, hey, like we got a big garage, like you can park here, just pay us like $5. Not bad for all night parking. But if you didn't pay attention or really didn't look hard enough, you would see that some of the houses were actually bars. They didn't have like some of them didn't have like the full-fledged neon signs and the flashiness of the bars like on Sixth and Fifth and like the main downtown bars. They just looked like regular houses. They had a name up there, and they'd be like, "Hey, yeah, we're a bar. If you want to come check us out." They didn't change anything. Some of them may have changed the interior and the inside to fit the bar scene, but the outside just looked like a house, just a regular neighborhood house. And that was like when I found out about that, that was probably like the best kept secret in Austin because it was never really packed with. There was packed with cars every now and then just because of the parking. But a lot of the bars weren't too packed because if you knew, you knew, and you would go there, and it was like your own hidden gem. And then as word slowly started to get out, it still became one of those things of like, yeah, the restaurants are the same thing, built for certain people, have certain vibes, have certain atmospheres. But it still had its charm. It still had its seclusion and its exclusivity. And that was always very, very special once we went to, like, when I started going to Bangers, when I went to Javelinas, and because it was just like, if I want to get away from 6th Street because it's the weekend or it's a holiday or spring break and there's a lot of just crazy idiots down there, and I don't want to be around that atmosphere just because anything can happen, fights can break out, you're going to be around a bunch of people you don't know, and you can't really gauge and anticipate how they're going to be, I could just go to Rainy Street. Now, over the years, recently, we've had a lot of people moving into Texas, and a lot of them were flying into Austin and buying and moving to Austin, buying property, houses. And so, with that growth, Austin needed to grow as well. And so, they started putting in new high rises for permanent apartments, condos, you name it, just for people who wanted to live and be close to downtown, to be around that atmosphere, could be there. The downside on that came real fast when a lot of the bars that were down there, uh, some of the bars started getting hit with noise complaints because people like the idea of living near a bustling bar scene, but some of them just didn't like the fact that they could literally hear music from Stubbs or from any of the bars clear as day in their high-rise apartments, and they're trying to work or they're trying to sleep and they're trying to have a peaceful night in. Both sides I kind of get, but then also on top of that, you have the increase of people living in an area increases property value, increases what people can make off of that. And so rent for a lot of those buildings, for a lot of those bars got jacked up because now it's like we're having an influx of people. Y'all should be making an influx of money. Y'all can afford to make this much in rent payments now. And that was the one of the main nails in the coffin was not just the noise complaints, but suddenly bars who only thrive on weekends and can get by or make a killing and afford to stay open suddenly now had to pay 2 times, 3 times what they were paying before in rent on top of their other expenses. And some just didn't like that and closed their doors. Some just tried to weather it out and make it work and ended up not being able to and having to shut their doors. And it's not just bars, it was the draft house as well on 6. They couldn't manage to afford the rent for what they were paying, and then all of their expenses on top of what they have to pay for, food orders, drink orders, rent, having to pay for licenses or to screen movies, old movies there, because that draft house didn't just do new movies, because they had 2 screens. They mainly would just show older movies and have like special events to make those movies fresh and to get people to come in and enjoy them. And then if they actually had a newer movie playing in that theater, you knew that that movie was going to be amazing because they were like, this movie deserves to take up one of our theaters. So that way it can be, people can come and watch it and enjoy it. Chupacabras is still there. They had to change, and their owner decided to fit more of the college club scene than their original like Tex-Mex infusion brand. And so they got rid of they had this wall of 40 different types of tequila or 40 different brands of tequila, which was like their main gimmick. That the Hispanic artwork on the walls, but they ended up getting rid of all the Hispanic artwork on the wall, most of them, and then swapping them out. And then they ended up installing a bunch of TVs above the liquor cabinet, so that way, or the shelves, limiting what they could put on the shelves. So now they just have the regular bar stuff. Like you have the Wells, you have the mid shelf and the top tier shelf stuff. But they got rid of that 40 brand tequila wall. They changed up their whole menu. So Chupacabra Burger is no longer available. The flautas, the stuffed jalapenos are no longer available. They went to just things that were kind of quick and easy to make, so that way people could just get them and keep drinking, essentially. And it really changed the atmosphere of the place. I could go on and on about why I love that bar, why I love the Draft House. But like I said, a lot of other places were just also what made Austin to me. And Lucy in Disguise ended up closing as well, just because now with the new influx, they couldn't afford the rent, and then they were also not getting a lot more customers like they were wanting, because they do have off seasons outside of Halloween and certain occasions to where people don't need to rent costumes or buy costumes, and but they ended up shutting their doors too after the rent got jacked up. And of course, like it wasn't necessarily the gentrification that closed all the places. COVID had its effect on a lot of the places as well. But these examples are the ones that really were affected by gentrification, with a massive influx of people moving into Austin from out of state. And I'm not blaming the people. I'm not blaming people wanting to leave, whether they came from California, which most did. They loved our state. Our state is actually very lovable. Aside from the politics, Texas is a very welcoming place. Texas is it's a very good place for just anyone, whether you're living here or visiting. You're gonna get that Southern hospitality. You're gonna get a great experience, whether it's from the culture, from the people, or just even from the sights. Texas has a wide range of beauty, and it's the desert in West Texas, the forest in East, and the hill country, which is where we are, like right dab in the middle, as well as the extreme flatland plains all the way up in North Texas. Like there's a lot to see and love about the state. I'm not going to fault anyone or blame anyone for wanting to come here and live here, because I lived in California for a little bit. There are views and things I miss about California, but I was still very happy to come back to Texas. But it's just the fact of what all came with it that is what I don't like. And that's always been the issue with gentrification. Me and my wife took a anniversary trip to New Orleans. The There was a gentleman that we were staying in his house as for him, because he has an Airbnb, but he offered a lot of tours, and he offered to have a tour where he would show the essentially like the old side of New Orleans, and talk about how gentrification has been changing everything in New Orleans and why the buildings should be remain intact, and just that's the negative effects. And I was like, that's a pretty crazy thing to sit there and be like, you can make a tour off of this. But I do like the fact that someone wants and is pushing to preserve New Orleans for what it is, and for what people know of it and romanticize over it. The architecture, not just in the French Quarter, but just overall the Cajun style of the architecture, the history. And then when I started to see what was going on with Austin, it's like I see why people want to preserve it. Like even now, Rainy Street has a condo that was built on the corner. And while that took away from Rainy Street a little bit, there were a few other bars, modern bars that opened up. One was Container Bar, just a great bar for the concept. And that ended up closing too. But you started getting these more modern bars popping up, and you have what Rainy Street traditional bars look like, and then you have the modern bars mixed in. And then now they've gotten rid of the food truck area on Rainy Street and opened up another hotel there, or high-rise apartment condos there as well. And they're not going to get rid of that neighborhood side as much as some developers would like to, just because the amount of money that Rainy Street can rake in and brings in. But you've also just destroyed the charm and the character of Rainy Street by having the high rises around it and in it. And Rainy Street also, just because everyone started telling everyone about it, word of mouth gets out, and it became an even more popular. It became essentially a sister branch from downtown. And so it's like you just completely changed something that it wasn't even just for locals, but just something that people who wanted to have this nice little hidden gem for themselves in Rainy Street, they could have. And it's those big things, not just to me, but to a lot of people, having them changed, having them modernized, having them defaced is a word that a few people have used, really destroyed the character of Austin. Because now you've got bars, restaurants that, while cater to the people who are now living there and calling Austin home, really changed the character of what made people want to come to Austin, whether it be here in the same state, just to go visit, just to go have a good time, or even just to live there. And that is what really just like breaks my heart for the whole situation. And I get it, as much as, especially when you're older, as you get older, you want things to stay the same, just so you can be like, I remember this, or if you ever want to go back to it, you're like, this hasn't changed a bit. I get, as the times go on, things need to change, and things will change whether we like it or not, because everything evolves, everything changes. I was going to say it gets better, but sometimes it doesn't get better, it ends up getting worse. Is this a case of Austin getting worse? No, because Austin has always had a bad side too, for the homelessness, from a little bit of violence, a little bit of the crime. It had its bad side too. Not gonna lie, not gonna deny that. But it hasn't. Has it made it better? Uh, no, not necessarily. It's just changed. Hasn't made it worse. It hasn't made it better, but it hasn't been completely bad. Just because, while the things that I've pointed out have changed, there's a lot that still remain the same, and that even the people who are moving into are respecting that. They're like, no, this has to stay the way it is. And I appreciate that, and I'm glad that at least there's a few parts that I can still go to and be like, I still have this. There's still this. The Texas Chili Parlor being one. And COVID also is the main thing that wiped out most of the goodness of what was around UT. They had a lot of college restaurants that, while were pretty amazing and could also had the most unusual hours just to kind of fit the college crowd. Again, can't really blame them on that, but I do miss Big Bite. It was this crazy stoner sandwich place, essentially. It's the best way to put it. Out of anyone who's ask anyone who's ever been there, they'll tell you. They were open from, I think, like 11 in the morning to about 4 in the morning the next day, or 6 in the morning. Like, yeah, they were made for college kids, especially the late night studiers or stoners or partiers who are just getting back from downtown, like maybe a mile away. But like, you still have Texas Chili Parlor. It still looks the same, still has the same, still is protected because of the UT alumni that constantly visit it on a game day, and will make sure that that place never gets changed, renovated, or even just modernized. Like, the charm of Texas Chili Parlor is not just in the food, but it's also in that environment. If you change any part of it, it's doomed to fail. The changes, not the restaurant. And we still have Hamilton Pool. We still have family business brewery. Which, by the way, like if you're ever gonna do one or the other, go to the other as well. Um, but yeah, just as much as I like change and as much as I know change is needed, it's just always hard to watch something you love become something else. But in that process, it usually becomes something else that someone else loves. And as long as it's a place that still has something that can make people fall in love with it, I'm okay with that. I just know it's not for me anymore, and I will go there if I feel like it, or if I feel like going to a place that I know is still there, and I'm like, hey, while I'm here, I'm going to go there. Like I might need some chocolate covered s'mores from Big Top Candy Shop or chocolate covered bacon. And if any of y'all say ew to that, go there, spend the $4 on it, try it. If it's not for you after that, cool, it's not for you after that. But damn, is it good. Anyway, uh, I crazy the fact that I was able to talk for 40 minutes on this episode about this. But I appreciate y'all for going on this drive with me after work as I'm coming back home. I again didn't want this topic to kind of be on my first episode. I was wanting to do like a movie review or talk about some other stuff, like TV shows and whatnot that I've been looking into and things I've just kind of been like on my mind. But this is not the first time we've been to Austin and these feelings got dredged up. It was just the fact that it happened, and I'm like, I've never really talked about this with anybody, just because again, everyone has their own experiences. Not a lot of people live down there. They usually went down there for their own thing, and so they caught glimpses of it here and there, and they have their own feelings and reservations on it. So I just wanted to get my feelings off about it, uh, and again, like, what a better outlet than just on a ride for an hour when I can just vent and talk and let this come, let my emotions come out and my words and my thoughts and my feelings. But that's also what you're going to be expecting from this show. Like I said, it's going to be a lot of deep talks. It's going to be a lot of just opinions, how I'm feeling about some things, and just stuff that just pops into my mind while I've been driving. I've been making this commute for, gosh, almost like 6, 7, 8 years now. Um, about 8 years since at least 2015. And the drive has always been very therapeutic. It's always been very soul cleansing, mind cleansing, and it just took me this long to realize like I could probably do a podcast off of this just to kind of get my thoughts out. I don't know if there's like-minded people. I don't know if y'all just stumbled across this by accident and y'all just giving me a shot. But if y'all did, hope you love the drive. Hope you love my ramblings. And we'll definitely try and get something a little more entertaining, a little more thought-provoking next time. But I'm gonna try to release these on Tuesday. Um, and like I said, I'm gonna try and see how this goes. If it ends up doing pretty well, I'm gonna go ahead and try and get some guests on, not just as a guest I can just drive with, but I do have a home set up. And you also can catch me sometimes on the Underachiever podcast. I'll still plug them. And a buddy of mine is starting another podcast that's solely based around music and the industry. And he's invited me on there a few times. They're going through dry runs right now and test runs. So you might be able to catch me on them. I'll plug them once they actually get their show up and going. So, yeah, we'll try to make next time a little more fun, a little more engaging. But I will say, since we're talking about engaging, let me ask this question to everybody. What in not just Austin, but in your town, in your city, what is one thing that you've experienced with gentrification that you've either liked or hated? Do you support gentrification? Are you against gentrification? And I mean, why not just like heck, share some travel tips, like for anyone who wants to visit your town. Like if there's some place you know that's still around after gentrification, or just around in general, and you're like, hey, if anyone ever comes so and so or comes here, y'all should check this out because it really kind of is a part of what makes this town this town. So until then, everyone, appreciate the listen. Thanks for riding along with me. I'll catch y'all next week.